Thank you. Thanks, Nicole, for the introduction. And I'm so sad today, but I'm so happy. I lose these wonderful coworkers, and we were looking at the agenda and we saw healthy relationship building for next month. And I think the three of us could teach that. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
We've had a great time together. And this is our lab. This is probably our encore performance, right?
Will be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so fitting because this is National Nutrition Month.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to show you some of the flavors of the world, which is really the theme of National Nutrition Month this year. And with everything going on in the world, we decided that chicken Kiev will be on the menu. Jicama.
The jicama and pear salad, and it's not actually jicama, it's jicama.
Oh,
We have a English lesson here today, so I want everybody to say jicama. Jicama. I hear you. Thank you.
I'm not sure I'll ever say it again that way. And we have a colleague. Her name is Sushnita Sadana, and we have all worked with her in some capacity. And she is providing us with a recipe for the third dish, which I'll prepare today. And it is buckwheat with mushrooms and walnuts. And buckwheat tends to be a very Eastern European product. And so we thought that would go well with the chicken Kiev today. Yeah, so are we ready to
We're
roll,
ready.
guys?
We're gonna let Jenny take it away.
Okay. So I'll show you a picture of this cookbook if you're interested in it. You can get it on Amazon, and I will be making this lovely dish today. Okay, put this over here. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to get this started, right?
Yeah, so go ahead and turn your heat on her pan. She's got her little burner
I'm
going.
learning as I go. I've got this little burner.
Jenny's used to working in her own kitchen, so she knows where everything is. And today we're making her mix it up.
Yeah, and I told them, I said, if I forget words or I look lost, help me out a little bit, but I do have everything here ready to go. So I've got my oil, which I'm going to go ahead and put in the pan. Get that heated up. And then I've got a cup of buckwheat groats, and I got these at Whole Foods in the bulk section. I'm not sure.
What's the different, why groats? Is it like milled down or?
I don't know the actual answer to that, except that I know that the fiber is still intact.
Okay.
And it looks to me like these things are cut.
Yeah, it reminds me of steel cut oats.
It does look like steel cut oats. So thank you, Katie, for calling me out on not doing my research on groats.
Well, that's all right. You did it on the chicken Kiev, so you got us.
Okay. And then we've got some crushed garlic here. And for this, I brought my own little crushed garlic tool because I'm not sure that this kitchen would have it. And then I've got my cut up mushrooms here. And what I want to show you is, this probably heats up pretty quickly. Yeah. Okay. Just help me not burn the place down, Katie.
You got it.
But one of the things that I thought maybe everybody wouldn't know exactly how to do is cut the mushroom. I had to think about it a little bit this morning. My mushrooms are medium sized, maybe big. I cut it in half, and then I cut it in half again, watching to keep my fingers out of the way. And then I just try to make these pieces even. So I get pieces like this. What would you call that? Like a ½ inch weird?
A 1/4 inch dice.
A 1/4 inch dice. Thank you, Chef.
Small dice.
I appreciate that. Okay, but I've already got them chopped up here. And then the recipe doesn't call for it, but I've got some diced carrots because I think that tastes really good. And I'm not sure I need to tempt fate and chop up that carrot. All right, so the first thing is I'm gonna put the groats into the pan. And the process is roasting this. That's the word that's used in the recipe. I'm also going to put the garlic in here. And I have, Katie, actually tested this. Jim, I actually tested a recipe before I did it live.
That's fantastic.
I mean, it's amazing for me. Okay, and then I'm just going to stir this around. The idea is to get all the groats and the garlic dispersed. We don't want the garlic to burn, and if it's in a clump, it'll probably burn, right, guys?
Yeah, or not get evenly cooked through. But I love that you're toasting it or roasting it in the pan like this, because you can do this with so many different grains before you start making dishes. And even if you're someone who likes overnight oats, if you like lay them out on a sheet pan with like your nuts and toast them in the oven really quick, they get a little more like nuttiness, and they develop like a deeper, richer flavor. So you're not just eating the same like bland oats every day.
Right,
you know?
so it's the idea of caramelization,
Yeah.
right? Bringing out the natural flavors in this.
Mhm.
So that's just gonna sit there for a second. And then as I see, I can't really show it, but these little pieces of growth get little spots of brown on them.
Yeah, you can kind of see it on there.
Can you see it? And then the garlic is just in there. It's evenly dispersed now. And I'm gonna give it a stir. At home, I didn't have this shape of a pan, so I tossed it around, which I found was really like the best way to do it, to keep it even.
Yeah.
And then you can shake the pan if you want to. Once I've got a nice brown on this, what do you guys think? I want a professional.
Yeah, they smell great. Smell the garlic.
Yeah.
And we're getting some nice color
Think
on
we're
the
good here?
grits.
I think you are.
This would be a good time also, that if I were gonna use any dry herbs or spices, that I put it in now,
Mhm.
right, to let it
Absolutely.
bloom. And I think you can do that, whatever kind of herbs and spices you like, but this is a real simple recipe, not very many ingredients. So you can adjust it to your preference. All right, so I've got my mushrooms. The recipe calls for a cup, and this is just a little bit more because I really like mushrooms. And when I made this, okay, this is what I was thinking about, you guys. I'm like, there's no oil left in that pan, and this is gonna get really dry. And it did. The mushrooms suck up every last bit of moisture in there.
Mhm.
But no worries, because what happens is eventually you start to hear the sizzling,
Mhm.
and that's the mushrooms releasing their juices. So it does work out.
Yeah, mushrooms have a high water content.
Our
So
PhD cookbook author was right. Thank you, Susmita.
I'm so
Alright.
excited for Susmita. I hope that she, gets to hear about this.
Yes, she has the link, so I hope she's on. Now, something that's not in the recipe is carrots. And I kind of realized that maybe our meal today that we're cooking may not have a whole lot of bright colors, because you're using pear
Mhm.
and jicama. And is that the right way to say it? Jicama?
Pretty close.
Okay.
Come on.
So I wanted to put some sweet carrots in here. It doesn't really change the nutritional value that much. And look how beautiful that is now.
So bright and pretty.
And it's sizzling, sizzling, sizzling. And as soon as the mushrooms cook down a little bit, it takes 5 to 6 minutes. Then I'm gonna pour in 2 cups of water. I'm gonna put the lid on, and I'm gonna simmer it for 20 minutes.
Okay.
So I think maybe if you want to go ahead and start your chicken, Katie.
Sure, I will get that going.
Can I be on the side here while you're there?
Yes, definitely.
So we know a little bit about the chicken keef, right?
Yes, Jenny's gonna give us a kind of broad overview of the history of chicken keef. Julie asked, what kind of spices or seasonings go well with the buckwheat?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so we were talking about some seasonings that we like and we don't like earlier.
I would use Middle Eastern seasonings,
Yes.
some turmeric, cumin, coriander would work well with that.
I
And
love coriander.
yeah, and you finish this up, you could probably throw in some cilantro in there, maybe a little bit of lemon juice, would be really, really nice to pick up some of the flavor.
Yeah, the picture shows it being served with a dollop of either sour cream or Greek
yeah.
yogurt.
Greek yogurt.
And I am a big fan of finishing off with a squeeze of some kind of acid. So
Oh, yeah, something
I would
nice
do that
lemon.
too.
We've got some lemons available. We might use that.
Mhm.
We also have some fresh parsley that we're gonna use that would pair well. So also maybe think about what dish you're serving this with as a side and
Right.
have like the herbs span across the 2 dishes to
Yes,
join
I like
and marry that palette together a little more.
And I think parsley would be nice in here, and also some onion.
Yeah, some onion would be great. All right, so we're gonna make chicken keef. which is Jenny has a little bit of history on that.
Yeah, so thankfully, the internet is right at our fingertips. And what I learned, and I would love to hear in the chat if anybody knows anything different, but the recipe is originally French. And there's a French name for it. And I took middle school French, but I'm not going to attempt it. So if anybody knows it out there, you win. And then it was adopted by the Russian culture. And it turned into chicken Kiev. And then the product that we actually know today was adapted in the 19th century by the Ukraine. So this is our little homage to what's going on in that area of the
Little
world
support to our Ukrainian friends.
Sorry, I'm throwing things all over you.
Don't throw it all on the floor. All right, so we're gonna start with, so this is a sizzle. No, you're fine.
Putting the water in.
This is a probably an 8-ounce portion of chicken. I put it as a 6-ounce to start with, but we can't always get the perfect size. So just make sure that, when we're talking about portion sizes, a portion of meat is like about the size of your hand, which is about 4 ounces, right, Jenny?
Yes.
And so you said, I love that you said this. It was so funny. You said, you tell your patients, you have a knife, don't you? You can cut your portion down, because we're so used to, you go to a restaurant, you get a large portion, and you just eat the whole thing.
Exactly.
So we're just going to take our chicken here, and we're going to butterfly it, which means we're just going to slice it in half so that it folds open like a book. And then we're going to place this in between 2 pieces of plastic wrap. I just used one long piece and then wrapped it around. And then so you guys didn't have to sit here and watch me hit it with a rolling pin multiple times. Here it is. I did that to save you guys that fun experience.
I'm not going to steal your salt and pepper just for a second to season this.
Please do. So we're going to open this up. You want to make sure when you're pounding out your chicken that you aren't trying to apply too much force in one spot over and over again, because as you do that, you are going to split the fibers of the chicken, and then the integrity of that will be kind of damaged, and it makes it a little bit harder to bread it. So we are going to bread it. And I will say that this dish is not the healthiest in its original form.
No,
it is very far from the like a healthy option.
Yeah, so Katie, the original has butter in the middle.
Yes.
And breadcrumbs on the outside.
Compound butter, yes, and it's deep fried.
And deep fried. So Katie has made this a very healthy version for us.
Yes, definitely a much healthier version. So we've got here in our pan, I went ahead, this isn't in the recipe, but this is kind of, I wanted to do this to show you how you can kind of make this your own. I have some sauteed caramelized shallots and garlic. And then this is light cream cheese. We're going to give just like a squeeze of lemon juice in here, just a light squeeze. And then I've got some fresh parsley that we're going to chop up. And some chives. Yes, I will chop up the rest of that, and you may have some. But chives, I don't know about you, Jenny, but my chives are coming back in my garden right now.
So big and thick.
Yes.
You can chop some up for me too.
Okay. So we're going to combine all of this. And instead of having a compound butter, we're going to have like a compound low fat cream cheese filling that we will stuff in the middle of our butterflied chicken. And then we're going to bread it. And then instead of deep frying, this past week on diabetes education, we brought air fryer recipes. And so normally, if you don't have an air fryer, you would pan sear the outside to get the breadcrumbs kind of crispy and golden brown. But I have an air fryer available in my kitchen. And I thought, well, why not? Let's use that. Because an air fryer is essentially just a mini convection oven, and it's going to circulate air all the way around that. So we're going to go ahead and just chop up our parsley and our chives here. and then add them all to our mixture.
I have to tell you, I love being in the kitchen here with you two because you're here, but because of your equipment. I don't think I've ever used a sharp knife before. It was like so fast to get my mushrooms prepped.
Yes, that is, yes, you got to keep your knife sharp. Rule number one.
And then not cut your finger off.
And then, yes, rule number two is don't cut your finger off. All right, so we're gonna take a few tablespoons of our herbs in here, and we're just going to mix all of this together and make this really lovely and bright. And then you need to make sure also that you season each kind of layer of this, because we're putting a lot of layers together on
And
this
chicken
chicken.
has no flavor.
It does not. You have to make sure that you add that. So a touch of salt and pepper goes a long way. And then we also have our standard breading station, which has the panko breadcrumbs, which are like a Japanese style breadcrumb. They're more crispy and crumbly. And you want to make sure that you season that too. So you have salt in this, as well as your egg wash, as well as a little bit in your flour. So each layer gets a little bit. Not overly, I'm not saying like add a ton of salt to it, but I'm just saying like make sure it's got that seasoning on
And
it.
if you feel better about not having a bowl of salt and pinching it and doing like that, like these chefs are doing, then have a little quarter teaspoon or an eighth of a teaspoon at the ready so that you can manage how much salt you're putting in.
So this is where we're gonna roll it up. We're kind of gonna make that, hold one side up over the other and just kind of pinch these sides together. Normally you would wrap it up really tightly, which you could do like this. If you roll this like this and then kind of go like that, it keeps it in a nice little bundle.
And then do you refrigerate?
And then you can refrigerate it or stick it in the freezer for, well, fridge for like 30 minutes, freezer for like 10 if you're trying to like expedite this process. But we're going to go ahead and just kind of bread this just for show so we can get it in the air fryer, and Jim can move on to his side. So when you pull it back out, standard breading station is flour. And then the flour is going to allow that egg or give that egg something to stick to. So we're gonna go ahead and do that.
And the chicken doesn't really hold that much flour.
No, it really
doesn't.
So it's not adding anything, any like carbohydrates. It's not really gonna be.
If you want to make this gluten-free, they do make gluten-free panko,
Mhm.
and you could use chickpea flour, almond flour, or something else as opposed, because all you really want is when you put the flour in there, you just want something for the egg to adhere to. So you have dry, wet, and dry.
Yes, and then we have it preheating. I'll show you kind of the air fryer basket. So this is what it looks like. It's got a little basket in the bottom, and then air circulates around the whole chicken. You can see there's holes here and here, but I'm gonna go ahead and kind of spray that. And then I'm gonna grab my tongs and make sure that once you're done with these tongs and you take this out,
That's beautiful.
that you leave that tongs in the dirty area and then grab a clean one for when you're gonna remove it from, so that you don't cross-contaminate with raw chicken. And then I'm gonna give it a top spray, stick it back in my air fryer. We're gonna go for about 20 minutes at about 350, 360.
And don't forget to do that little spray on top.
Yes.
That's adding no fat at all to this dish, and it's going to help the air fryer to brown it. And that's what you really want. Jenny, here,
There's
all
thank
together. That's perfect.
We'll clean off with my here.
And I did read also about chicken keeve is that it became very popular in the 90s in our freezer section at the grocery store.
Oh, I did not know that.
And actually, if you go to the grocery store now and you're zooming by the chicken in the freezer section, you can still see a lot of stuffed chicken breasts and chicken feet. So
I'm gonna look out for that.
I'm gonna look at the nutrition labels next time.
So funny.
Very good.
Have any questions before Jim jumps into?
Questions?
Yes.
No questions.
No questions, awesome.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the jicama salad and with pears. And what we have today, to finish off the recipes, we're going to use some local honey. You could use agave nectar if you'd like to, but I like to use honey because it has a little more flavor. Agave nectar has some flavor to it, but not quite as much as the honey. A little bit of cider vinegar. We have some walnuts that I didn't toast. We just broke these up a little bit. This is our jicama here, okay? So what you want to look for is one that is really firm and doesn't have any soft spots or any real imperfections on there. These aren't, you won't find these in abundance in too many grocery stores because it's not something that a lot of people use. If you live close to in areas where there might be a large Hispanic population, you'll probably see these a lot more readily than you do in some of the grocery stores that we have around here. And then we have some red Danju pears, and I wanted to get these because number one, they have a lot of flavor. They're a little bit soft, and I wanted to use those as well because they have some color, and between the green and the red, I think it's going to look really, really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and make the dressing first and foremost. So the dressing is olive oil, some cider vinegar, and a little bit of honey. So because I'm a highly trained professional, you're going to add 2 teaspoons of olive oil, which I have right there. That's 2 teaspoons. I have the salt and pepper. Okay, we're going to add a teaspoon of cider vinegar. And again, if you want to use champagne vinegar or red wine vinegar, whatever vinegar you like would be perfect. And then we're going to use some of our local honey. And you'll find, or you may find this at home, that if you have honey, and if the honey starts to crystallize a little bit, that happens an awful lot if you don't use a lot of it. I like to buy smaller portions instead of buying like the 16-ounce jar, because if you leave it in your cabinet too long, it starts to crystallize a little bit and it doesn't want to spray out. One thing that I will do is I will throw the entire thing into the microwave for about 10 seconds at a time to get to a point where it's really pliable, and you can take out the or spray out the honey. But you want to make sure that when you do that, that if you take the lid off and there's any mylar that's still on the lid here, mylar has some metallic properties to it. So you'll see sparks coming out of your microwave, and you really don't want to see that. It's kind of dangerous. It's kind of unnerving when you're cooking, so you really kind of want to stay away from it.
Yeah, it's got metal in it.
Yeah.
Like in the little.
Well, that's the reason why mylar is kind of one of those great inventions, but at the same time, it's a horrible invention because mylar cannot be recycled. Mylar is generally the metal. It's coated with plastic, and it makes things look great, but you can't recycle it. So when you buy your coffee in mylar, and you see other things that are made with mylar. Mylar balloons are absolutely horrible for the environment. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy balloons, but you get my point. So we have our dressing ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and slice the pears. And what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to take one thin slice off here, and then I'm going to put it flat. And why am I putting it flat like this? So it doesn't roll around and I don't cut myself, because the last thing that I want to do is cut my fingers while I'm preparing this dish. So we're going to take real thin strips off this and get down to about the center. So when I hit a seed, then it's time to flip this over. We're just going to pop this seed out. But what we'll do is I'm going to put all these back together, and then you'll see we're going to use the
love red pears.
The way these things go.
One of my favorite dishes to make with it is actually just a salad that's got a brown sugar vinaigrette and then toasted like pecans and then the red pears. I love it.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Now talk to me about, I'm in the store and I see all these pears and they're hard as rocks. What do I do?
Jim.
Well, a couple things you can do is throw them into the microwave. No, don't do that.
With the mylar, apparently.
With the mylar, yeah. What you want to do is kind of bring them home and let them sit on your kitchen shelf or windowsill, and they will eventually get soft.
What's that bit about putting them in a brown bag?
You can put them in a brown bag, but if you want to put them in a brown bag, I will use a banana because the banana gives off ethylene as it ripens. So the ethylene will help soften
Oh, okay.
the fruit. So if you have something, even an avocado that's a little bit too hard, you could put a banana in the same bag as an avocado to help soften the avocado.
Because essentially as the fruit is breaking down, that's what it's releasing, is that chemical. And you're trying to capture that in the bag. So it's like recycling that process and making it ripen or break down
Awesome.
faster. So if you have something that's already on its way, it'll help with that.
All right, I just want to tell everybody out there that these knife skills are mad.
Okay, so you see we made little julienne cuts here with our pear. So we're gonna go ahead and put first pear in our bowl. And then we're gonna go back and I'll show you the second pear, just so you get a good idea of what we did. Again, we're gonna cut a piece off the sides so the pear doesn't go rolling off and I cut my fingers. We're gonna cut the pear in small, thin slices. And we're gonna take these and then lay them all on top of each other, because what some people will be tempted to do is as each slice comes off, they're gonna wanna go like this. And that will take you forever and stack it. When I was a very young chef, I used to work for a guy who was kind of a mean chef, and every Saturday he would make me peel 50 pounds of onions every Saturday. And so the other chefs were telling me, you know, put a pack of matches in your mouth or put a piece of bread in your mouth, and that will pick up all of the acidity from the onions, but they just laughed at me. So what I learned is, instead of doing any one of those foolish things that when you're cutting your onions, when you clean them, put your onions into ice water. And then as you cut them, bring them up and then take the sliced onions and move those as far away from you as possible, as quickly as possible. And then you won't cry when you're chopping your onions, because when you're crying, you can't see very well. And again, you might cut yourself. Safety is first and foremost. So there we have our nice julienne cut pears.
A little bit of red on the end of that very white flesh.
And that's one of the reasons that I chose the red pears, because between the spinach and the pears, that'll give us some nice contrast. We've got our jicama right here, and the same thing. I'm going to cut a flat edge on the bottom. And to save some time, you could do a couple different things with this. You could try to cut this whole thing and take it around and then get your julienne cuts out of this. I'm not a big fan of that, so I'm going to kind of cut this into a square.
That looks like the safest way to do it.
Yeah, you're always trying to create like a flat edge if you're like really not someone who's comfortable with your knife skills, because then at least it's not moving around. And it also helps because then you can create like the same size cut, like you were talking about making your mushrooms the same size.
Right.
Because then all of the jicama and the pear can be evenly coated in that vinaigrette that we just made, where if you got like a huge chunk of jicama and then like this tiny piece of pear, it might not be picking up on the same thing.
Exactly. And, you know, whenever you eat, you always eat with your eyes. And if your food looks uniform in size, it looks like somebody really spent their time to make sure it's uniform in size.
We like beautiful things.
Yes, we do like beautiful food. And when you see something that looks great, whether it's a flower or whether it's food, I mean, it's all about, you know, colors and different contrasts. So now we've got our jicama. Then we're going to take this and we're going to treat this like a stack of cards. And when you get to this section here, you just want to grab your fingers like that. Be very careful when you're doing that. Jenny's over here warning me to be careful.
You know what, Jim? I think that
Just
home
by your
cooks like me, when we are thinking about doing this, I just saw you throw away a whole bunch of jicama. And I'm trying so hard to save every little scrap. And I think that's where I go wrong and where, you know, the safety kind of flies out the door.
Well, this is all about efficiency here. I mean, I could peel that, but the jicama, they are coated in wax and they are really difficult to clean. So this is the way I do it. I cut it into a square. And the part that you're really throwing away, you can't make into nice thin julienne cuts because you've got the curvature of the jicama. So you can't make straight cuts like this. So it makes it somewhat difficult.
So I'm giving everyone permission to throw some away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please, basically what I'm doing. Or better yet, if you have a compost bucket, throw that into your compost, or if
I
you,
was just gonna say that.
that would be the great thing to do. So we've got our things here. If you look at them, they look nice, they look colorful. We're gonna go ahead and stir up our vinaigrette a little bit because the honey settled to the bottom. We're gonna go ahead and pour this over here.
You don't need a lot.
And Jenny says it's not enough, so I'm gonna
No,
add some
it's
more.
not
honey.
very much.
This is for Jenny, folks, okay?
You misunderstand. I thought that was awesome.
Okay, and a little more cider vinegar, okay?
I don't know if you guys haven't had jicama before, or if it's something that you're kind of like, well, what does jicama taste like before I spend the money on it? Get it?
It's
so
kind of a cross
good.
between a pear and an apple, or an apple and a potato. It kind of tastes like potato, or feels like potato.
Yes, it's so crunchy
tastes
and
like pear.
light and
Yes.
lightly sweet. It kind of has, whenever, there's like that coffee shop called Sweetwater's around town. And it makes me think of jicama, because I feel like that's kind of what, yeah, it's kind of,
sweet.
yeah.
Juicy.
and, but it's very kind of like almost watery and
It's a great
flavor.
vehicle for flavors.
It really is,
Yeah,
yes.
it's not adding any, it has carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So I have to tell you right now, I feel like I'm in that Saturday Night Live skit, Delicious Dish, and I'm the guy named Ted, but we're not gonna go that way. So here we have our jicama, we have our pears. We've got them seasoned. You want to let these marinate for about 15 minutes. We're gonna take our walnuts that we broke. I didn't chop these, 'cause when you chop them, sometimes you get a little bit of walnut dust, and I didn't want to do that. So we have this here, and this can sit and marinate for, 20 minutes, a half hour. And if you want to make this ahead of time, you can do this part ahead of time. Don't add your spinach ahead of time, because the acidity from the vinegar will break down your spinach. So we're gonna take our,
That dressing smells phenomenal.
we have about 3
And it's
cups,
so simple, there's not a lot going on in it.
3 cups of spinach. And again, like when you're cooking spinach, you might have if you have a pound of spinach and you cook it down, you're only gonna have about an ounce of usable spinach.
That's beautiful. I love the
So
contrast
here-
of color.
We have lots of nice colors here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put this into a salad bowl. And this makes about 3 to 4 portions. This portion here might be a little bit large. And
Yes, please.
we're just gonna kind of move this around a little bit, so we have the leaves turned up the nicest. And then, because Jenny has some toasted walnuts over here, I'm gonna go ahead and grab some of
They
her
have
toasted
some.
walnuts and sprinkle those here. And then to finish this off, I'm gonna top this with just a little bit of kosher salt. The salt will open up your taste buds and will allow you to taste the flavors and all of the nuances of the dressing. So I'm just gonna kind of sprinkle this around. And then we have some of the coarse ground black pepper, which I love to use, both of the kosher salt and the coarse ground black pepper. Number one, because they're very tactile, and especially with the salt, you're gonna use a whole lot less salt, because when you pick it up in your fingers, you're gonna feel how much that is in there, versus if you have that blue tube with the little girl in the umbrella, you're gonna go like this, and you're gonna put that, and you're gonna over season your food or over salt your food. And if you have, any cardiac issues, we all know that salt is not your friend. Speaking of friends, this dish has quite a bit of fiber to it. And if you are north of 50 and fiber is your friend, this dish is for you. So here's
It
this great
also
looking
looks-
dish. And it looks delicious, it tastes delicious, and it's got so many things going for it. It's got a nice crisp texture to it. It's got some depth of flavor. You've got the fresh greens in here. Excellent dish.
Right, Jenny?
All right, here we go. Show them how this-
Mm.
Katie just tried this. Here is our buckwheat with a little bit of carrots.
So good.
Garlic. Did I season it all right? Okay, so what I'm gonna do that isn't in the recipe is I'm gonna put some in this bowl. And I probably should mix it in here, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Put what we want in here. Ooh, that looks good.
And that is not one portion, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, am I doing one portion? Sorry, guys. All right. let
My
me-
chicken
let me-
isn't either.
So actually,
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you're fine.
there we go. We'll do it a little bit, but this is like maybe 2 portions. And then I'm gonna take that beautiful chives and parsley that Katie nicely prepared for me, and I'm gonna be really generous because I love that. And again, we're gonna use walnuts and sprinkle that on top. And I didn't chop mine because chef intimidated me here. I was going to chop them up to be the same size as the carrots, but I don't want any walnut dust.
I'm so sorry.
I don't want walnut dust. I never knew that. So here is this beautiful side dish. Now, this is our starch, right, of our meal.
Yeah.
And this is about 2 portions here. The recipe is going to give you either 4 main dishes or 8 side dishes. And I think there's about 15 grams of carbs in there, very little fat, tons of fiber. And what I didn't say about the buckwheat groat is that it has all 9 essential amino acids, which is pretty special.
Nice, very nice.
So this is a really healthy dish for you.
I'm gonna go ahead and we'll slice into this chicken so we can see the inside. So this is what this looked like out of the air fryer. And we'll just kind of see how our filling worked out in there. Oh my goodness, guys.
Ooh.
Yum.
And the one thing that really helped with this is once this was cooked, Katie allowed this to sit for about 10 minutes. And what that does is because when you're cooking something, you're forcing all of the heat to the center of the dish you're cooking. And by allowing it to sit, you're allowing the juices to redistribute themselves. If we would have cut this right out of the oven, the cream cheese filling would have been all over the plate. So this is, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, and now we need to end because I'm ready to eat this.
Yeah.
So yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, we'd be happy to answer questions. And I can see that the chat is lively and somebody's been like, trying to tell everyone what jicama is like to them.
Yeah, thank you.
Aw, and a little sadness for Jim leaving. You're well loved here.
I'm gonna cry.
Are you?
No.
There are onions over there.
Jim is retiring,
I am
so he's
retiring.
just on to whatever endeavor he wants.
After 31 years here at the Med Center, I am retiring at the end of the month. I've applied for a job as a Walmart greeter. So if you see me at the Walmart on Sawmill Road and you hear me saying, I've been practicing this for a while, milk you, which really means may I help you? But I've shortened it a little bit. Just say hello.
All right.
Okay.
We had a couple questions come in. Someone's asking if you're accepting reservations because it looks amazing. It does. We had a question about buckwheat asking if it's gluten-free.
Is buckwheat gluten-free? So
Despite the word wheat,
yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like
it's naturally gluten-free.
yeah, I thought that it was, yeah. So yeah, buckwheat is naturally gluten-free, but you are going to want to make sure that you are getting one that says, that has on the back that it's not processed on shared equipment with wheat, because that can be.
Oh, I got bulk.
Yeah, which Jenny got it out of the bulk thing, but typically, like oats, a lot of the times you have to buy, oats are naturally gluten-free, but you have to buy gluten-free oats because sometimes they're manufactured on shared equipment. So
Really good advice. Yeah. What else is there?
yeah, what else did we miss?
We had a question about what would some other nuts be a good substitute for the walnuts.
Oh, gosh.
Cookies, almonds.
Any
kind
nut
of
that
nut
you
would be
like,
fine.
I suggest dry roasting them and not putting salt on them. I think they taste much better.
Mhm.
What do you agree?
Yes.
And you can do it in a skillet, you can do it in the oven.
And what's nice about this, you could get raw almonds or a raw nut and then roast them. You're gonna get a lot more flavor out of them. Because if they're pre-roasted, you lose some of the flavor versus something that you roast fresh. before you eat it. So, you know, raw to roast, add your, is fantastic.
Yeah, I think pecans are a nice option too. This kind of, I think, speaks to like a pecan flavor profile.
I think so
A
too.
little bit more than.
What tells me what nut to use is when I go to the nut aisle and whichever one is least expensive.
Yeah,
There you go.
or the one that you have available.
Yes.
Or whatever you have at home.
Just don't use old nuts.
Yeah.
You know, you need, this is something that goes bad rather quickly.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you and what you guys suggest, but when I buy a bag of nuts that I'm not gonna use right away, I put them in the freezer. What do you think about that?
Just make sure they're sealed really, really tightly
Yes.
because there's a ton of humidity in your freezer.
Yes.
So put them into a Ziploc bag and then put them into a second Ziploc bag,
Okay.
and they'll store for up to 6 months.
All right.
Yeah.
Seeds.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right.
I never knew you could put nuts in the freezer and have them hold for 6 months. So that's
Yeah.
good tidbit to know.
You can always
Right.
do the sniff test with nuts.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's the best. You know, if the oil in them has gone rancid, because typically,
You
yeah,
don't like
you
it.
can tell though.
Yeah.
You open that bag and it's got a sour smell to it. You're like, this smells off. It's off. Don't use that.
It's our animal instinct.
Yes.
And all the nuts are really providing this healthy fat. So, you know, I go by the 80-20 rule when I'm thinking about the fats that I'm choosing. Am I choosing nuts and avocado and liquid oils over butter, sour cream, cream cheese, full fat cream cheese that is. So using that 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, use the thing that you know is the healthiest. There are no bad foods, but 80% of the time, you know, which proteins to choose, the lean ones, which carbs to choose, the complex ones, and which fats to use, the unsaturated ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, we've had a wonderful go of it. I'll miss you all as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah. If anyone have any questions, we still have a little bit of time. So if anyone has any questions, you can put them in the chat. If you want to unmute yourself real quick, that's fine too.
And I'm gonna hopefully be bringing these two back for our diabetes friendly cooking demo of our second and fourth Tuesday out in line.
Yes,
Yeah, guest
absolutely,
appearance.
absolutely.
We're getting our calendars out in a minute.
Yeah, we work cheap.
Hey.
A lot of people excited about that news. I see that in the chat. So okay, I'm not seeing any questions.
All right.
So I just want to thank you three for taking time, being here with us, taking us through all these recipes. As always, they looked so good and I'm not ready for lunch. My lunch won't look as good as that, but thank you guys for being here. And thank you, Katie and Jim, for all the presentations that you've done for us. And Jenny, we look forward to having you with many more in the future. So
Thank you.
thank you guys. And then thank you to everybody who tuned in. As always, you'll receive a post email either later today or early on Monday. It'll have the recipes in there. I can put the link to register for the diabetes friendly cooking demo that they were just referring to. And there also will be a link to an evaluation if you could take just a couple minutes to fill it out, give us some feedback, give us some topics you want to see in the future. We really look at those and help use them for further lunch and learn. So thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.